Kira, after 15 years with TechVantage, we're reconfiguring your role, Eleanor Maxwell announced, her voice carrying an unmistakable undercurrent of satisfaction. She occupied the chair across from me in the cramped meeting room, with Jillian, from Human Resources, beside her. Both wore expressions of practiced corporate sympathy. The organization is embracing a new strategic direction, Jillian added, pushing a beige folder toward me across the polished surface. Your input has been significant, but we're integrating the research division under product development oversight. I accepted the folder with a thoughtful nod, leaving it closed before me. I knew its contents without looking. Severance calculated. At 2 weeks per service year, health benefits extending 12 weeks, and career counseling resources I'd never explore. I completely comprehend the situation, I replied, my tone unwavering. Such organizational decisions always involve difficult choices. Relief visibly washed over their features. They'd anticipated tears, objections, perhaps even outrage. After all, I represented what the tech industry increasingly viewed as disposable. A woman past 50, in an ecosystem where youth trumped experience. What remained invisible to them was my anticipation of this precise scenario for weeks, ever since. A misdirected email chain had appeared among my messages last month. We'd appreciate if you cleared your workspace by Friday, Eleanor continued, gaining assurance from my apparent acceptance. We'll need to collect your security credential, company computer, and mobile device before departure. Your team will receive notification this afternoon, Jillian added. My team. 6 exceptional engineers I had personally identified and developed throughout the years. The same individuals who collaborated with me to create the distributed computing algorithm now powering TechVantage's signature product, AccountSphere, financial software utilized by over 40% of Fortune 500 corporations. Naturally, I responded, rising from my seat. Is there anything additional to address? They exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by my composure. Eleanor recovered first. That concludes our discussion for now. Thank you for handling this professionally. Walking back toward my office, I passed the transparent walled conference room where the executive committee was gathered. Through the glass barrier, I observed CEO Richard Harmon gesturing enthusiastically at projected slides labeled Q3 revenue forecasts. The same Richard Harmon who had claimed credit for my algorithm during last year's industry summit, referring to me merely as one of our research personnel. I secured my office door and retrieved my personal phone, sending a single message. It's happening. Friday marks my final day. The response arrived instantly. Perfect timing. Agreements are prepared. Dinner tonight to finalize arrangements. I smiled while examining the calendar on my desk. Today, Wednesday. Friday, my final departure from TechVantage. Monday, the beginning of something extraordinary. That evening, I met with Christopher Reynolds at Sapphire, an upscale establishment far from TechVantage headquarters. As chief executive of Exacta Systems, TechVantage's principal competitor, Chris, understood discretion's importance. He'd arranged a private dining section at the rear, shielded from curious observers by elegant bamboo partitions. They actually followed through, Chris remarked, shaking his head after we ordered. I suspected they might, but to remove the very architect of their core technology. Richard never truly grasped what I created, I replied, sipping water. He recognized the implementation, interface, and marketing potential, but the fundamental architecture remained just technical details to him. The irony approached perfection. 3 months earlier, I discovered TechVantage's legal department had never filed the patent application for my distributed computing algorithm, an oversight, they claimed when I inquired. They assured immediate handling, but something about their response triggered suspicion, prompting me to investigate internal documentation. That's when I uncovered it. A strategy document outlining plans to claim the algorithm as company-developed technology without specific inventor attribution. They'd planned my removal before securing the patent, knowing intellectual property developed by employees typically belonged to the employer. What TechVantage hadn't realized was my development of significant algorithm enhancements on personal time using private equipment. Those improvements, increasing processing efficiency by 43%, weren't covered by my employment contract. I'd quietly filed for a patent under my own name last month, meticulously documented with timestamps and development logs clearly demonstrating the work occurred outside company hours. The patent had been granted with remarkable speed, thanks to Chris's introduction to a premier intellectual property attorney. All paperwork is finalized, Chris said, now sliding a folder across the table. Once you sign, Exacta Systems officially acquires exclusive licensing rights to your patent. The announcement goes public Monday morning, introducing you as our new Chief Innovation Officer. I carefully reviewed the documents, though I'd memorized the essential terms: 7-figure signing bonus, substantial Exacta Systems equity, and ongoing royalties from all products utilizing my algorithm. What expression do you imagine will cross Richard's face when realization dawns? Chris asked, unable to suppress his satisfaction at the prospect. I'm more concerned about my team, I admitted. They don't deserve to be caught in the aftermath. Chris nodded. Already addressed. Positions await all 6, if interested. Senior roles with significant compensation increases. I signed the final page and closed the folder. In one elegant maneuver, I'd secured my future, protected my team, and ensured recognition for my innovations. To new beginnings, Chris said, raising his glass. And to recognizing your own worth, I added, touching my glass to his. Thursday and Friday passed in a whirlwind of exit interviews, knowledge transfer sessions, and colleague farewells. I maintained professional poise throughout, even as speculation spread across departments. Administrative assistants offered sympathetic glances in corridors. Junior developers approached awkwardly, asking if I'd provide professional endorsements before leaving. I documented everything meticulously. Every project, access code, and procedure. Knowing TechVantage would soon discover just how comprehensive they needed my transition notes to be. My decision to leave detailed handover documentation wasn't generosity. It was evidence. Evidence I'd acted honorably, while the company had not. During my final exit interview Friday afternoon, Jillian mechanically proceeded through standard protocols. You acknowledge that any intellectual property developed during your employment remains TechVantage property, she stated, pushing a confidentiality agreement across the table. Certainly, I replied pleasantly. Anything developed within my employment scope, using company resources, during company hours. I subtly emphasized those qualifiers, but Jillian was too preoccupied checking boxes to register the distinction. And you confirm possessing no copies of proprietary company information? I've retained nothing belonging to TechVantage, I confirmed truthfully. The patent was rightfully mine. As I packed personal items from my workspace, family photographs, conference credential collection spanning 15 industry years, the mug my team presented last Christmas, Eleanor paused at my doorway, leaning against the frame with artificial casualness. Just confirming everything's arranged for your departure, she said, watching me place items into a cardboard container. Absolutely clear, I replied, wrapping a small award I'd received for the very algorithm now central to my strategy. The irony registered as I carefully nestled it between tissue paper layers. You understand, Kira. Restructuring decisions are never personal, Eleanor continued. Richard believes the company requires a more youth-oriented direction. I looked directly into her eyes. I comprehend perfectly. Business remains business. Something in my tone caused her momentary hesitation. Uncertainty flickered across her features before quick dismissal. What threat could an unemployed 55-year-old woman possibly pose? Will you take some recovery time? She asked with manufactured concern. Actually, I've already secured a new position, I replied. I begin Monday. Surprise registered briefly. That's remarkably quick. Anything interesting? I smiled. Very. A leadership role I'm genuinely enthusiastic about. She nodded distractedly, mentally proceeding to other matters. Well, best wishes with that. As I exited TechVantage's glass headquarters for the final time, security credentials surrendered, personal belongings in hand, I paused briefly to view the building where 15 career years had transpired. On the uppermost floor, I observed the executive conference room illuminated for evening discussions, likely addressing redistribution of my responsibilities among younger, less experienced, significantly less expensive personnel. Little did they anticipate that within 72 hours, that same space would host an emergency crisis meeting instead. Monday morning arrived bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my new graphite suit, a power ensemble purchased specifically for this occasion. Exacta Systems' town car arrived precisely at 7:30 a.m., transporting me to their headquarters for my first day as Chief Innovation Officer. The UR press announcement activated at 7 a.m., Chris informed me, as I settled into my new corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. Industry newsletters are already featuring it. Communications team is monitoring reactions. The announcement had been crafted with precision. Exacta Systems acquires exclusive rights to revolutionary processing algorithm. Welcomes creator Dr. Kira Jennings as Chief Innovation Officer. It detailed my background, emphasized my role as sole inventor of the patented technology, and outlined Exacta Systems' integration plans for their next-generation products. Most crucially, it clearly stated that any organization currently utilizing the technology would need to negotiate licensing arrangements with Exacta Systems moving forward. At precisely 9:15 a.m., my phone illuminated with the first message from my former team at TechVantage. Complete chaos here. What happened? From David, my lead developer. I smiled, typing, "Check personal email. All 6 of you have offers waiting." Meanwhile, 8 miles away at TechVantage headquarters, the scheduled Monday executive meeting was experiencing dramatic transformation, according to David's play-by-play updates throughout the morning. Richard had arrived to find the company's general counsel and chief financial officer awaiting him at his office entrance, both ashen-faced. The industry announcement had reached their inboxes simultaneously, triggering immediate alarms. By 9:30 a.m., what should have been routine start-of-week discussions had morphed into emergency crisis management. Board members joined remotely. Legal teams frantically reviewed my employment contract and documentation surrounding the algorithm's development. "They're collecting every file bearing your name," David reported. "Someone just delivered all research. Division servers for technical team examination." I could visualize the scene perfectly. Richard pacing the conference room, demanding explanations from Eleanor and legal department representatives. Stock prices would already reflect the news. Investors abhorred uncertainty, and the announcement created abundant concerns. At 10:45 a.m., I received communication from Richard himself, desperation practically emanating from my screen. "Kira, there appears to be misunderstanding. Please contact me at earliest convenience to discuss." I forwarded it to Exacta Systems' legal department without response. By noon, industry speculation buzzed. TechVantage shares had dropped 7% since market opening, while Exacta Systems enjoyed 12% increase. 3 different technology journals requested interviews about the strategic maneuver that had shaken the accounting software industry. "How are you feeling?" Chris asked, stopping by my office as I settled in. "Validated," I replied honestly. 15 years watching others claim credit for my work, being told I should feel grateful merely having inclusion, and now, finally, recognition. My new executive assistant appeared at the doorway. "Dr. Jennings, the development team awaits. You in the main conference room? Also," she hesitated. "TechVantage's CEO has called 4 times this hour. Please inform him I'm in meetings throughout today," I replied calmly. "Our legal team will contact them regarding licensing options later this week." As I proceeded toward my first meeting as Chief Innovation Officer, my phone vibrated with another update from David. "Board called emergency session. Richard appears near explosion. P.S. My team and I accept your offer. When can we start?" By Tuesday morning, my departure's full impact had become evident throughout TechVantage. Their flagship product, AccountSphere, relied entirely on my algorithm to process massive datasets that provided competitive advantage. Without licensing rights to my patent, they faced equally unpalatable options: negotiate with Exacta Systems or rebuild core technology from scratch, a process requiring years and millions in development investment. Richard has scheduled company-wide assembly at 2 p.m., David messaged. It was his final day at TechVantage. He and my former team would join Exacta Systems the following Monday. Rumors suggest legal action against you. I forwarded his message to our legal department, who responded almost immediately. Let them proceed. Your documentation is impeccable. Development logs, timestamps, personal equipment usage clearly established. We've prepared for this scenario. Meanwhile, I acclimated to my new position with remarkable ease. The respect at Exacta Systems contrasted starkly with my final years at TechVantage. When I spoke during meetings, people genuinely listened. My ideas weren't repackaged by male colleagues and presented as their own. My age and experience were considered assets rather than liabilities. The engineering department is implementing your efficiency improvements, Chris informed me during our afternoon briefing. Preliminary testing shows 51% performance enhancement, exceeding projections. I developed several refinements never shared with TechVantage, I admitted. After discovering their plans to eliminate my position, I saw no reason to provide my best innovations. Their loss, our advantage, Chris replied with a satisfied expression. Incidentally, the first licensing inquiry arrived this morning. Not from TechVantage yet. They're still in denial, but from Dataflow Systems, concerned about industry implications. At 3:30 p.m., David provided a detailed account of Richard's company-wide assembly. The CEO attempted projecting confidence, assuring staff that TechVantage would vigorously defend our proprietary technology. But anxiety permeated the gathering. Several employees had already updated professional profiles, sensing the company's vulnerability. Eleanor appeared faint when someone directly questioned whether they'd failed to secure the patent, David reported. Richard terminated the question, period immediately afterward. By Wednesday, industry consequences intensified. 2 major clients contacted Exacta Systems regarding transition from AccountSphere, expressing concerns about TechVantage's capacity to maintain the product without the algorithm's creator. Our stock rose another 8% while TechVantage's continued declining. I received contact from Jillian in HR, the same individual who had delivered my severance package days earlier. Kira, she began, her voice carefully professional. I'm calling regarding the situation with your patent. We believe misunderstanding exists about ownership rights. I perceive no misunderstanding, I replied evenly. My employment agreement explicitly states intellectual property developed independently, using personal resources, remains mine. Patent documentation confirms precisely that. Richard hoped you might consider visiting to discuss options. Any discussions would proceed through Exacta Systems' legal department, I responded. I'm certain they'd happily arrange meetings regarding licensing terms. The silence conveyed volumes before Jillian finally sighed. I'll communicate that information. That afternoon, I conducted my first formal presentation to Exacta Systems' board, outlining our technology roadmap with my algorithm as its foundation. Standing confidently at the table's head, not hidden in the background as at TechVantage, I noticed Chris's approving acknowledgement. By Friday, just 1 week after departing TechVantage, the company had entered full crisis management. Their stock had fallen 23% from Monday's opening, triggering concerned investor communications. Industry analysts published speculative articles titled, "Can TechVantage Survive the Algorithm Crisis?" and "How One Strategic Miscalculation May Cost a Tech Giant Everything." Through industry connections, I learned Richard had finally acknowledged the situation's severity to board members. TechVantage would either license my algorithm from Exacta Systems, likely at prohibitive rates devastating profit margins, or undertake complete AccountSphere reconstruction, without using any technology covered by my patent. They've begun interviewing for a replacement development team. David informed me during our Friday video conference discussing his upcoming Exacta Systems transition. Richard claims functionality reproduction within 6 months. I couldn't suppress laughter. The original algorithm required 3 years to perfect, with intimate problem domain understanding. Precisely, David agreed. Nobody believes the timeline, especially after your team's simultaneous resignation announcements. The knowledge deficit is massive. That afternoon, TechVantage's attorneys finally contacted Exacta Systems to initiate dialogue regarding potential licensing arrangements. Our legal team, following our predetermined strategy, responded with terms technically reasonable but strategically challenging. Triple standard industry rates, plus public acknowledgement of my role as technology inventor. They'll resist the acknowledgement, more than financial terms, Chris predicted as we reviewed the response in his office. Richard's ego prevents admitting he removed the person who created their core technology. Then, reconstruction becomes necessary, I replied. Every day spent attempting to replicate my work extends our market leadership. The following Monday morning, 10 days after my unceremonious dismissal, I conducted the first meeting with my newly assembled innovation team, including David and the 5 additional engineers from TechVantage. The room's energy felt electric as we mapped the algorithm's next evolution. This represents how development meetings should function, remarked Teresa, another former team member. At TechVantage, half our time explained basic concepts to executives, who wouldn't listen regardless. That's the distinction between being valued versus considered replaceable, I replied. Here, your expertise receives acknowledgement. As we concluded the productive session, my assistant appeared. Dr. Jennings, significant development with TechVantage. Their board announced emergency leadership change. Richard Harmon stepping down effective immediately. News spread rapidly. Within hours, industry publications reported TechVantage's board had lost confidence in Richard's leadership, following the patent oversight threatening their flagship product. Eleanor was also removed, along with legal department leadership who failed properly securing the patent. That evening, I received unexpected communication from Michael Donahue, TechVantage's newly appointed interim CEO. Unlike Richard's desperate message from the previous week, this one conveyed straightforward respect. Dr. Jennings, congratulations on your new position. I've been appointed to help TechVantage navigate current circumstances. I seek discussing fair licensing arrangements for your patented technology. We're prepared to publicly acknowledge your contributions and make appropriate compensation for previous management's oversights. Would next week permit meeting availability? I forwarded the email to Chris with simple notation. Phase 1 complete. His reply arrived promptly. Beautifully executed. Board celebrates your first major Exacta Systems victory. Appears TechVantage finally discovers an expensive lesson about valuing innovation and innovators. 3 months following my TechVantage departure, I occupied the stage at the National Technology Innovation Conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. The audience included industry leaders, technology journalists, and aspiring developers, many now familiar with my narrative. Please welcome our keynote speaker, the conference organizer announced. Dr. Kira Jennings, Chief Innovation Officer at Exacta Systems and creator of the distributed processing algorithm, revolutionizing data management across multiple industries. Substantial applause accompanied my approach to the podium. What remarkable transformation a few months achieved. Last year, I'd attended this identical conference within the TechVantage delegation, seated remotely while Richard presented his company's innovations. Thank you, I began, surveying attentive faces. Today's discussion addresses innovation, ownership, and properly valuing intellectual contributions regardless of origin. My presentation detailed technical aspects of my algorithm, but also explored broader recognition and respect issues within the technology sector. Without explicitly mentioning TechVantage, I emphasize companies protecting their innovators rather than viewing them as interchangeable resources. Afterward, during the reception, several young female engineers approached seeking guidance and mentorship. One, barely 30, confided, "Your experience changed my documentation practices. I've initiated detailed development logs for personal projects." "Intelligent approach," I replied. "Your innovations deserve protection." As the evening concluded, I checked my phone to discover an industry news alert. TechVantage had finally announced the licensing agreement with Exacta Systems, acknowledging me by name as the algorithm's creator. Their stock had stabilized, though at significantly reduced valuation compared to pre-departure levels. 1 year to the day after being instructed to clear my desk, I sat in my spacious Exacta Systems office reviewing quarterly innovation reports. Under my leadership, the company had introduced 3 groundbreaking products built on my algorithm, capturing significant market share from TechVantage and competitors. A knock interrupted my analysis. Chris entered, carrying champagne and 2 glasses. "Happy anniversary," he said, placing glasses on my desk. "The board requested personal delivery of news before public announcement. Exacta Systems has officially surpassed TechVantage in market valuation for the first time in company history." I smiled, experiencing not triumph, but quiet satisfaction. That's the consequence of properly valuing innovation. As Chris poured champagne, my assistant delivered an elegant envelope containing an invitation to address Women in Technology's annual leadership summit. The topic: Owning Your Intellectual Value. How Proper Documentation Changed an Industry. "You've become something of an icon," Chris observed, noticing the invitation. The narrative about the executive who failed recognizing what she possessed until it disappeared has become cautionary wisdom in corporate boardrooms. Michael Donahue, remaining as TechVantage CEO following the crisis, had implemented comprehensive changes in innovation recognition and reward policies. Their revised intellectual property protection and inventor acknowledgement protocols reportedly modeled programs I'd established at Exacta Systems. "This was never about retribution," I said, raising my glass. "It concerned recognition, demonstrating to the industry that innovation isn't anonymous, but originates from real individuals deserving genuine credit." "To proper recognition," Chris agreed, touching his glass to mine. As afternoon sunlight streamed through my office windows, I reflected on my journey. At 56, I'd finally discovered what eluded me throughout my career. Not merely success, but acknowledgement. My name permanently attached to the algorithm that transformed an industry, precisely where it belonged.